Okay guys, in the last video we set up our context, our auth context, our initial state here. We're going to kind of put this on pause for a second and just create our register and login components, at least the initial forms, and get those routes in here. So under components, let's create a new folder and we'll call this auth. And inside auth we're going to have login.js. And we're also going to have register.js. All right, so let's start off with the register. So we'll do a little scaffolding here. And this is going to be a form with a few fields. So we're going to be using the use state hook. So we can add the component level state. We're going to use some other stuff as well. But for now, I just want to kind of set up the form. So down here, let's add, let's say const, and let's do user and set user, because that's what we're doing here is we're registering a user, and we're going to set this to use state, and we're going to pass in an object with the fields, which is going to be name, email, password, and password 2. Which is just the password confirmation. And then let's destructure so we can use those as variables. Okay, and we'll take that from user. All right, so for our form, let's add we'll keep this div here, and I'm going to give it a class name of form container, which is basically a container that's a little more narrow than the standard container. And then we'll have an h1 in here, and we're going to say account, and then it's going to be account register, but I want the register to be colored, so I'm going to have a span with the class of text primary. And by the way, the primary colors and all that stuff in the CSS file, it's all in variables, so if you want to change the color, you can easily do that. So let's say account register, and underneath that we're going to have a form with no action, and inside the form let's create some form groups. So I have a form group class because I'm going to use a label with these forms as well. So let's do a label, and remember we can't do a for attribute here. We got to do HTML for because this is JSX. So we'll say for name. And then we'll put an input, and this input will have a type of text. It'll have a name of name and a value of name, which is part of our state, and then an on change of on change. Okay, so basically we want to do this for all of our fields. I'm going to go ahead and save this. It's going to turn all my double quotes into single. And then I'm going to copy the form group here. And the next one is going to be the email address. Okay, we'll call this email. Let's change, let's change that. And then let's also change the type to email. And then this, and the value. Okay, so underneath that we want our password, so we'll change that to password label. Let's change the type, let's change the name and the value. Okay, and then I'll just copy that whole form group of password, and then this is going to be password 2 for the for attribute, for the name, and for the value. For the text, I'll just say confirm password, and that should be good. Now we just need to submit, so I'm going to go under the last div here and put an input with the type of submit, and let's just say for the value register. And we'll give this some classes. let's do btn, btn primary, and btn dash block. Okay, now in order for this to work, in order for us to add stuff to the text fields, we need to add our onChange. So let's go up here and do const onChange. And this is going to be pretty similar to our other forms. It's just we're going to do set user, which is our object, and we want the current values. So use the spread operator with user. Then we can get the name attribute with e.target.name, and we want to set it to the value. So e.target.value. So every time we type, it's going to enter the correct piece of state. And then let's see, we'll have an onSubmit. So let's say onSubmit, and we'll just set that to onSubmit. We'll go up here and add that. Let's do. So we need to prevent default. And then ultimately, we're going to want to call a method here to register. But for now, I'm just going to do a console log and say register submit. So at least we should be able to get the form to display. So let's bring this into our app.js. So up at the top here, let's go ahead and bring in from components auth register. We're going to bring in register. And then down here, let's add a route. So I'll just copy this down, and we want register, and the path will be register. Okay, so let's see if that works. I'm going to go to localhost 3000/register, and there we go. We have our register page, and we should be able to type in here. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and do the login. We have some other stuff to do within the register component, but I just wanted to get it to display. I want to do the same with the login. So let's just copy everything from register and paste it into login, and just change a couple things around. So obviously the name is going to be login, and then this here, user, we can keep this because we're just dealing with a user, but we don't need a name since this is a login. We just need an email. We don't need password too. We just need email and password. So we can get rid of those from here as well. onChange is going to stay the same. onSubmit, we'll just say for now login submit, and then in the return here, we're going to have a form container. We're going to say account login, and let's see, we don't need the name. We need the email. We don't need confirm password. So we'll get rid of that. And then the value right here, let's say login. And then the export, we'll say login. All right, and then we'll add this to our routes. So let's go back to app.js. Let's bring in login. And down here, let's add the route. So /login. It's going to be login. All right, so now let's try to go to /login, and there we go. Now I'm just going to add the links to the nav bar here, which ultimately they're not going to display when we're logged in, but we'll add that functionality later. But for now, let's just go to layout navbar.js, and let's go, just copy this down twice, and this one will be register, and login. All right, so if we go back, now we have those routes. We can easily access those pages. Okay, and we'll have a log out, obviously, once we're logged in. Now, I would like to implement our alert system before we move on, because we'll have alerts, for instance, if the passwords don't match, or if we get some errors back from the back end, we'll want to show those as well. We're going to make it so that we can show more than one alert. Basically, it'll be an array that we can loop through, which is a little different than what we did with the GitHub project, where it was just one alert at a time. So I think in the next video, we're going to go ahead and create our alert state and context and get into that a little bit.